Sometimes you might be invited to go and sing at an event or at a show, and you get there and you realize that the ambience is fantastic. You know, the colors are bright. You know, the ushers are fantastic. You know, the smell is heavenly. And then you get on the stage and, you know, you're about to start your sound check and you realize that the sound is horrific. Yes, you're going to have times where, you know, you go for an event and then the sound you meet is so not right. A lot of musicians, especially singers, you know, get affected by what they hear. Now, if you have been paid for the show or you've been invited for the show, you know, and then you get to the venue and then the sound is not exactly what you would want it to be, you need to try as much as possible to contain your emotions and not get overtly upset that it affects your performance. I've seen a lot of musicians who get to a show and realize that the sound is bad, and then they give a bad performance and they tell everybody, oh, the reason why the performance was bad is because the sound was bad. At the end of the day, you know, when people leave the event, they will remember how bad your performance was, not how bad the sound was. You know, I don't think people came to hear the sound, they came to hear you. In as much as the sound is important, you are actually more important than the sound. You know, I mean, I've been to several concerts where the sound was bad, but I had to be wise, you know, not to injure my vocal cords in the bid to be made audible. If the sound is bad, work with the bad sound. There's nothing you can do except, of course, you know, you're big enough to bring your own sound to the venue, but if you don't have the luxury of bringing your own sound to the concert, then you have to manage what sound is available. Because truth be told is, if your attitude changes because of the bad sound, it won't just affect you, it will also affect your backing vocalist and your instrumentalist. And at the end of the day, there's a bad vibe that will come out of your sound, and you really don't want that. If it's so bad, it's horrific, you know, you can't stand it, go a cappella, you know, and tell the crowd to get closer. But truth be told is, most of the times when you're going to, you know, sing at a concert, you may not have that kind of setting where you can tell everybody to come closer and, you know, listen to you because the sound is bad. Two, it is a very bad trait of a singer to be complaining about the sound on stage. You can do that at a sound check, but once the performance has started and you start complaining and you say your mic is bad, yes, people will, you know, yeah, but they're not expecting you to actually say that, you know, which is what sound check is for. So once you realize that at sound check, it's horrific, there's nothing you can do about it. You have to just learn to go with the flow and just mark that venue that, okay, I will not come back here to come and sing because your sound is bad, except, of course, there's a miracle and something happens. Now, sometimes we have a flipped scenario. Sometimes we have a scenario where you go for an event and you've gone for sound check, and the sound check is nice, you know, your sound is in place, your instrumentalist, your backing vocalist, and then they have a digital console and they save your setup. Now, most times, you may probably not be the only person performing at that event. So other singers come and then they use the same setup, and then the engineer saves, hopefully saves. Sometimes you realize that when the performance starts and you get on stage, you realize that the sound has changed totally. Now, whether a demon came and, you know, messed up the sound, you have no clue. You just realize that you get on stage and the sound you are listening to is horrific. It's nothing compared to the wonderful sound check you had initially. There's every tendency for it to show when you're performing. Try as much as possible to be in control of your emotions. Use your emotions for the song, not for the engineer. At that point in time, you've been paid, the engineer has been paid. The last thing you want to do is draw attention to your inadequacies. No, draw attention to your perfection. Don't let anybody know that you came for sound check and the sound check was horrible. I mean, I've gone to a concert before where the singer got on stage and apparently he had come for sound check and the sound changed. And he was complaining to everybody at the concert using his mic saying, you know, engineer, what's happening to my sound? My sound was perfect when I came. It really doesn't help your image as the artist, really. You know, you may be content with letting everybody know that, you know, this is a bad performance because the sound is not nice. But trust me, people will not leave remembering the sound was bad. People will leave remembering that your performance was horrible. So sometimes you may have to deal with a nasty engineer who has a bad attitude. You know, he tells you save it, or worse still, you go for an event and then the console that they're using is analog, meaning the engineer does not have the luxury of saving your setup. He's using his head. There's practically nothing you can do but just pray, you know, that the sound would turn out in your favor. The only way out of this is for you to have your own sound engineer. I always advise every singer, if you want to have a fantastic performance, make sure you have your own sound engineer who comes in and checks your sound to see that your sound is fine, so that during the performance, if anything changes, once your engineer is the one on the console, he can, you know, tweak things in your favor. Well, some people may say, I don't have the luxury of having an engineer, you know, to pay someone to always come to all my concerts. Then you have to pray for patience, really, because at the end of the day, you don't want to leave that performance with this attitude that everybody sniffs and goes, nah, we didn't like his performance, you understand? So if the sound is good, fine. The sound is bad, fine. Don't let that affect your own performance. Don't start having an attitude and start cursing on top of the stage. I mean, I've seen singers who get on the stage because the sound is bad. They start getting aggressive with everybody, including their team members. And that's a very bad vibe and atmosphere you're creating for your own, you know, for your own performance. So learn to understand that you will meet situations where the engineer is horrific, the sound is nasty. Sometimes you think this sound, you know, they opened it from hell. You don't have any control over it. Try as much as possible to do your best. And then at the end of the event, complain. But don't complain during your performance. If the sound engineer is, you know, is something from a horror movie, try as much as possible to cope with the sound. Don't try singing above a bad sound. You will be the one to lose your voice. The sound will remain, but your voice will go. So try as much as possible. If your sound is bad and you really can't hear yourself, don't scream and don't lose your voice. Keep singing. Hopefully, someone will notice that your mic isn't working properly and they will work on it. And if it isn't, hallelujah, just have fun.